Welcome, everyone. This is Glenda Dawson. Um, LD had a mission today, so he's not here with us today. And you're watching Glenda's Dragon's Den. I do have a special guest, Kyle Mangus. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right.
You did it
Because
perfect.
thank you, because I mess up so many times on names. But um, and well, I'm just gonna give it to you and you tell us all about you. The audience is waiting to hear.
All right. Well, thank you for having me, first of all.
Thank you.
My name's Kyle Mangus. I'm the vice president of an organization called the Friends of White Hill Mansion, which is basically trying to preserve and save an amazing historic and haunted mansion in Fieldsboro, New Jersey. Um, I'm also a paranormal investigator. So that's kind of the meat and potatoes about me in that part of it.
So tell us, how did you get started in all this?
So that's interesting story. So I was always kind of interested in the paranormal, but never really took it serious. But that wasn't my main reasoning with getting involved in White Hill, and that's kind of what spawned my interest and spawned my journey into the paranormal. So I was always intrigued by history and old places. History was always my favorite subject growing up in school. Um, and in my 20s I kind of was looking for something kind of to do, so I started researching family history, and I have a lot of family history that goes way back even into the 1700s in the local area surrounding White Hill Mansion, which is Fieldsboro, Bordentown, right around Trenton, New Jersey. So I found this amazing place, White Hill Mansion, and I was like, I just want to go volunteer and help out save an amazing piece of history, because the history alone at White Hill is pretty incredible. So just reached out to him, went over there one day, started volunteering, and the next thing you know, I'm doing tours, all kinds of stuff. Just fell in love with the place, fell in love with the history, just wanted to do everything I can to help it. And then became a board member, and I've been there for about 5 years. And in the first couple of years, like, I knew the place was haunted, but again, that wasn't my main draw. I was like, cool, it's haunted, but I just want to save the history. And I kind of started to have my own experiences and kind of was like intrigued by it. And I'm very skeptical. I'm a mechanic by trade, so I'm always trying to figure out why things are doing the way they are, why things are making noise, all that. So I was very
Mhm.
skeptical, and there was a couple experiences that I'm like, I can't debunk it. It kind of got me intrigued in it. But it all kind of culminated um, about a year and a half or 2 years in.
Mhm.
At this point, I was having experiences. Like every kind of haunted house has, the footsteps, the disembodied voices. But I was always kind of brushing that off. I still was, I guess, a healthy skeptic. I
Okay.
wanted to believe, but I was like, I just haven't had that moment yet. And I was given a history tour during the day, and I went into the house after everyone left to lock up like I normally do. Went up on the second floor, went into one of the small bedrooms, came out, and standing in the hallway right in front of me is a 2 to 3 year old little boy. And he's looking right up at me. I looked him right in the eyes. He looked at me, and then he just disappeared. And that's when I was like, okay, I believe you now. I got you. So that's kind of what spawned me into the paranormal. There was no way that I was seeing something, or he was a real person standing there, a real little boy. We made eye contact, and he just disappeared. So since then, I've been, investigating and exploring the paranormal. So it's been a really interesting ride, and especially being at a haunted location, kind of helping run operations to save a place. I mean, I love it. It's the blend of historical preservation, the haunted, the
Mhm.
paranormal community, all of it. I just enjoy it. So.
Mhm. Well, as a girl from Jersey,
Mhm.
um, it's just like that state calls you in and holds you there,
Mhm.
and no matter where you move, it's still home.
Yep.
And those old buildings, you want to preserve them before somebody comes and decides that they're too old, you know,
Exactly.
brings them
Exactly.
bring them down and make more housing,
Yeah.
which we don't need more of.
No. No. So, and it was interesting too, because I always, like, growing up, I always heard my parents and my grandparents talk about. the mansion, and it never connected until
Mm.
maybe 6 months in that that was the place we were talking about. So I do also have some kind of family ties to the building too.
Really?
So in the 70s, the mansion, even in the 1920s, it was turned into, it went from a, a family home to a restaurant.
Mhm.
My grandparents knew some of the people who opened the restaurant and ran the restaurant in the 70s. So
Mm.
they go there and help out. My dad was a busboy there when he was a kid. And even I found out with some of my family research that my great grandfather was um, the mayor of Fieldsboro and was very kind of close with the original family who opened the restaurant in the 20s. Actually played on their like local baseball team. So it was kind of like a cool,
Nice.
history family reunion type little thing. So it's just a cool place. It's just an awesome location.
Mm. So tell us about the place.
Oh, how much time you got?
A lot.
All right. So it's had the building that's there now, dates back to about 1750. Um,
Mhm.
but there was another building on the property, dating all the way back to 1723, but we just don't know where that is.
Mm.
So the Fields family, who Fieldsboro is named after, acquired
Mhm.
land in 1723. There were three generations of Robert Field one, two, and three. The main story revolves around Robert II. He's the one who built the opulent mansion in around 1750. They dated it to. He was very politically and socially connected in the local area. He was really a wealthy businessman involved in shipping. He had a tavern at the end of the next street over. Um, Owned multiple businesses in Philadelphia. He had over 600 acres at their height, which is pretty much the town of Fieldsboro at this point.
Mhm.
Um, but he was very, like I said, very socially and politically connected. And he was a part of an organization called the Correspondence Committee. Each state and each colony at that time, before they were states, had their own correspondence committee. It was a way that they all could kind of write letters and stay kind of connected and informed into the lead up of the American Revolution.
Right.
And the house sits on a one of the highest bluffs on the Delaware River in that area.
Mm.
And it got its name White Hill because before Fieldsboro got named, it was actually called White Hill because that hill used to have apple and berry trees that would
Mm.
bloom white. So everyone who'd come up the river would see the White Hill. So that's why they built their big opulent mansion there.
Right.
Um, but one day in 1775, Robert Fields went on to a secret meeting down in Philadelphia. The Delaware River is directly behind the house. He got on one of his boats, and allegedly, there's a lot of mystery around this. He went, like I said, to one of these secret meetings, but he never returned.
Mm.
He had a slave or a servant with him, and when he came back without Mr. Fields, they were like, "What happened?" And he had like four or five different stories. No one really knew what happened.
Mm.
Um, it didn't make sense. They did find his body 5 days later on the Pennsylvania side. Um, and the accounts that we have is that he had a gash in his head and water in his lungs. So they kind of speculated at the time that it may have been either political or business related, possibly a murder, but they didn't really have CSI back then, and the American
Right.
Revolution, the American Revolution was kind of leading up, so they kind of just rushed it under as an accidental drowning.
Right.
But that left his wife Mary, pregnant with her seventh child,
Mm.
to run all of his businesses, this big opulent mansion, all this land, and basically the American Revolution broke out on her front lawn. Um,
Mm.
so in that area, there was a lot of activity during the Revolutionary War. Mary was visited by the precursor to the American Navy. She was visited by the British multiple times. The British actually searched the property on multiple occasions because they thought she was harboring, rebels. She was a woman of her means at the time, so she was able to kind of, shoo them away. Like, listen,
Mhm.
I don't have anything here. I don't want to have anything to do with your war. Right before Washington crossed the Delaware, she was visited by the Hessians, who were hired mercenaries to fight on the British behalf, and they
Mhm.
basically they stayed at her house for 2 weeks. She didn't really want them, but she kind of didn't have a choice.
Yeah, no. There's certain
So
people you just don't have a
e
choice on.
exactly. At the time, they were staying in the next town over, Bordentown, and it was a really harsh winter, so they were burning everything, fence posts, people's furniture to stay warm. Um, but Mary lucked out because we actually had a couple letters that she wrote to her sister during that time period, and the captain who stayed with them in her house was like the best Hessian in the area. She said he was the most polite little Dutchman ever. He brought all of his own food, all of his own cooks, everything. Never took anything from Mary. His doctor actually helped save one of Mary's kids who was sick at the time. So
Mm,
she lucked out really well, but it's very turbulent times, and especially for a woman at that time period, we kind of call her, the matriarch of the mansion.
mhm,
Um, she was very smart and witty how she navigated that time period. She actually got protection orders from the British, from the Hessians, and then later on the even the Americans. So it's a big reason why the house is kind of still there. So
mm,
she is a big part of our story. She did eventually remarry. She remarried an American Navy captain named Thomas Reed. His brother was one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence from Delaware. Um,
okay.
he was a bigwig. He was one of three confirmed deaths that we know in the house. So
Mm,
um, that's just that time period in the Revolutionary War, and that's just what we know. I mean, there was probably so much more that we're even still researching to this day.
mhm,
But then the Fields had the house for about 80 to 90 years. The last Robert Fields III, he kind of lost the house. There's rumors that it was mismanaging, but we're just not sure what happened there. So eventually it went to a couple different families throughout the years. In the 1800s, there was three notable families there. There was David Bruce, who was a famous typesetter in his time
mhm,
period, about 1830. He invented a typesetting machine that kind of revolutionized the typesetting industry at that time. He invented it right in the attic of White Hill somewhere.
mm,
And then there was James and Joseph Mayer in the 1880s, who were famous for their tile work. They had a big factory in Trenton, and they invented all kinds of tools and techniques that kind of revolutionized that industry. So in the 1800s, there was a lot of industry and inventors at White
right.
Hill. And then the last family before it became a restaurant was the Crossley family, and they did a lot to the house. They changed it from a colonial house. They turned it into what is called like a Victorian mansion. So a lot of the changes that you see when you look at it, you're like, wow, it kind of looks colonial, but it looks different. It's kind of like a mishmash of different stuff because they imported a new staircase from Louisiana in 1896, blew out the back of the house, did all kinds of really amazing architectural features.
Mm,
Um, and then the last little, I guess, life of Wayhill Mansion was in 1922. Um, a German immigrant, Heinrich Glink, who was working as a waiter in Trenton and whatnot in that time
mm,
period, acquired the house, bought the mansion, and turned it into a very successful, famous German restaurant. So his family ran it from 1922 all the way to 1972 before they changed hands. And it ran as a restaurant from 1922 all the way to 1992 when it finally closed down. But Heinrich Glink actually he's the one who put a speakeasy in the basement, dug it out by hand during Prohibition. Everyone knew it was there. It was the place to be. So just an amazing amount of history. And even before there were any European settlers, it was
mhm,
Native American land. We've had
mhm.
two archaeological digs on site. They found over 20,000 artifacts.
Wow.
They determined that before the 1700s, it was Native American Lenape winter camp. So they would come there in the wintertime, then I guess they would move off in the summer. So it's just a really cool snapshot of American history because
Mm,
it you got Native American stuff. You've got before it was even a country, you've got, 1800s, 1900s, all the way till now. So it's kind of like a snapshot of American history. And that's what really, drives me to save it because it's like, it's the whole picture from beginning to end.
it sounds like a very interesting place to be,
Yes.
and, the fact that you found so much artifact, that's amazing,
Mhm.
especially after all this time. I mean,
Yep.
that stuff could have been dug up already,
Yep.
thrown out, whatever.
Developed all kinds of stuff in the
Yeah.
area. Yeah, and I think that kind of lends to some of the hauntings or the paranormal activities because it's just been a place where people have either habitated, lived, had happy moments, had sad moments. It's just been occupied for
Mm,
probably thousands of years at this point if you include the Native Americans. But I mean, even modern times, 300 plus years
mhm,
of it being a family home, being a place where people came and met, and it's just, I think it kind of still holds some of that energy, I guess.
mhm. Now, have you guys, now that you're in the board or on the board,
Hmm.
have you guys done any type of construction or updates or anything like that?
Yeah.
And have
So
you experienced anything while doing
yeah. So I came on about 5 years ago. The organization's been around since about 2011.
that? Hmm.
So we're a 100% nonprofit volunteer organization. None of us get a salary. So everything that we bring in from either historical events, any kind of fundraising, donations, the paranormal community is one of our biggest supporters. They really generate a lot of our funding. Um,
Hmm.
that all goes right back into the house. So we do a lot of matching grants now, and
Hmm.
a lot of people don't understand like historical preservation, how hard it is. Like there is funding out there, but it's not enough for all the historical locations out there. So we have done a lot of repairs. Right now, we're working on um, maintaining the exterior. So the structure is sound. It's just keeping that way. So we just did a big grant that stabilized the front porch, which
Hmm.
was in near close to falling down. So they stabilized that. Um, there was a window called an Oriole window that was put on in the 1890s. That again was in disrepair and was ready to fall down. With had ironworks, all this beautiful architecture that they were able to save and restore to that. And I've noticed too when we've had also smaller grants through the last couple of years, stabilizing some of the woodworking on the outside, and it seems to have a little bit of an increase in activity. It's almost
Hmm.
like they get a little excited. They're like, "Ooh, something's going on. This is good." So it's really cool sometimes when, especially for me because I'm there a lot. I'm doing a lot of the paranormal events,
Right.
so it's kind of like a long-term paranormal case study. You kind of see some patterns, and it's just really cool to see different people come in and experience the things I've experienced, and even experience other things that even still are pretty crazy to me. So,
Now, have you experienced Native Americans?
so I have seen what I think is Native American paranormal activity, I guess you could say. But
Hmm.
we've had reports of different volunteers over the years. They kind of seem to be isolated to one side of the property. So we've never had any reports of any kind of Native American spirits or activity inside the house. It's always been on the outside, on the grounds.
Hmm.
But we've had two volunteers separate of each other, um, seen a full body apparition of a Native American man kind of just watching. They always seem to be observing and just watching. Um,
Sounds like a guardian.
yeah, and they pretty much described the same person, and they didn't really know each other. So it's there has also been reports of seeing um, a Native American on a horse on the
Hmm.
back of the property. My experience was I was actually outside during a paranormal investigation. The team was inside. I was outside. And our president, Dawn, had her back to the tree line. And I was just looking at her, and she was just talking to me. And then I saw this hand come out from the tree line, and it's all brush, and it's a big hill. So I know there's no actual human being back there, or I would hear them. And she's talking to me, and I just see this hand just goes like this and slips back into the trees. No noise, no movement, but it was a real
Right.
hand. It wasn't see through. It wasn't ghostly. And my eyes were like this big. And she's like, "You're not listening to me, are you?" And I'm like, "No,
Nope.
I'm not. I'm trying to process what's happening behind you." Um, but that kind of seems to be the vibe that we get on the outside of the house. It's almost
Mm.
like you feel like you're being watched or observed.
Hmm.
Never malicious or threatening anyway. Just a presence. Like
Right.
when I lock up the house sometimes at night and I'm walking across the parking lot, you just have that feeling like, okay, I'm being watched, I'm being
Hmm.
observed.
Hmm.
So that's the Native American aspect of it. Um, I've never had anyone report any EVPs or have any photos or anything, but I saw them. I know they're there, and
Hmm.
I think they're just very watchful and I guess protective of their land. That's the
Hmm.
only assumption I can make. So
Well, it was theirs,
yes.
so, and they were considered to be married kind of to the land because
Hmm.
the land provided everything
Yes.
and they were very grateful to the land. So, um, but yes, usually guardians, they just watch.
Yes.
If you're doing something to destroy the land or to destroy, then they step in and Hello, nope, you're not doing that.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. This is a cool story too. So I forget when it was. It was about 2 or 3 years ago, and it was around Halloween. And we had a couple trees on the property that were close to. We had a couple scares where big limbs fell in the house, and they were huge, and it was in danger of possibly taking the house down. So
Right.
we actually had to get them removed. So before the tree guys came, I just walked over to the area where they were, and I'm like, listen, I don't know if you can understand me, but I'm just like, we have to do this to protect people around walking
Right.
around the house. We have to protect the house. We don't want anyone to get hurt.
Right.
Like, we're not doing it just to whatever. So
Mhm.
I don't even know exactly what I said, but that night we had a public investigation, and I was just kind of hanging out in the property, letting them do the thing, and they kept coming out to me, and they're like, "We keep getting the craziest stuff on the Ovilus, the spirit boxes, and EVPs." And they're like, "It's all over the house. It's in the attic. It's in the basement." I'm like, "Well, what are you getting?" And like they keep repeating trees, limb, sacrifice, trees, limb, all kind of stuff like that. And I'm like, "Well, I guess it worked because we're having trees cut down." So it was kind of a cool thing. So I don't know if it was Native American spirits or just
Right.
the regular spirits of the house kind of acknowledging like we see what's going on. So
Mhm.
that was really cool, and we haven't had that
Yes.
since. So I don't know. It's
Yeah,
just really cool.
that's one rule that, people don't understand. Even if you, because I have a 1900 house
Hmm.
and it's huge and the whole thing. And when I walked in, it was terrible. The previous owners lost it and they just whatever. So I've been trying to bring it back to somewhat of a beautiful,
Hmm.
whatever I can save, type of house. And I walk into a room, I'm like, hey guys, whoever it is, whether you're the owner, the land watcher, the guardian, whatever, I am just here to try to better this, not
Hmm.
make it worse. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful. And when I do that, all the contractors that I hire, anybody that comes in, no problem. But if I forget to do that, oh, I've had contractors walk out the house
That's crazy.
because like we're hearing things and things are falling and that's it. We're not walking. And I'm like, it's just the cats. They're like, no, the cats were not there. We put them away. And I'm like, well, okay, well, they probably didn't like you. So, but that's one of the things they all are very much into the respecting,
Hmm.
protecting nature, not destroying, honoring stuff. So that
Exactly.
so how big is this house?
Oh, so it's roughly 6,000 square feet. So the original 1750 house, you can kind of
Mhm.
still see the outline of it, but they also have done renovations through the years. So
Right.
that's the other thing where when we go through the house and just the history part of it, even with the historians and historical architects that we work with, they're trying to figure out like what was put where because there's been so many people just putting their own little pieces on it. So they think the main body, the main brick house, is 1750, and they had a 1790 edition
Mhm.
put on. And it's just an incredible kind of walk through and all that kind of stuff. It's one of those places you walk through and you know you're not alone and you're kind of experiencing history
Mhm.
like live. Um,
Mm.
so it's just really, really cool.
Now you have private and public events.
Yeah, so we do have private investigations where you guys can book Friday and Saturday nights.
Mhm.
All of it's on our website, whitehillmansion.org. We
Right.
also do public events. We have a whole bunch of different local teams and some event companies that come in and host events for us. So,
Right. Right.
um, but to be honest with you, when I started this little adventure into the paranormal and historic preservation, I had no idea how big the paranormal community was in historical preservation. I mean,
Mhm.
without it being haunted, I don't know how we would generate enough funds to make a big enough impact to save and preserve it. I mean, it's
Mhm.
slow going now, but without the support of the paranormal community, people coming out investigating, it would be a monumental task just to raise funds. So I thank
Definitely.
everyone who comes out either for the history and especially the paranormal because I mean, you guys are helping preserve history through investigating and having fun. So
Hmm.
it's amazing.
So I will have all your links in the bottom
Hmm.
of this. But do you have any events that are coming up?
So I know we just did our 2024 calendar because 2023 is wrapping up.
Right.
Um, and I believe that's all going to be on our website.
Okay.
I don't know off the top of my head. I know in May we're
Hmm.
going to have another big Paracon at White Hill. We did one last year, and we had Katrina and Heather Taddy
Okay.
come out. That was a really good fundraiser for us. In March, we try to do every year. I think the third week of March, we do a historical reenactment where we
Mm.
have a whole bunch of historical people come out. We have reenactors from the British, from the Hessians. We even got some 18th century pirates reenactors. They come out, they sing sea shanties. It's a really good time, and that is always super active. The next couple weeks after that, it's like
Hmm.
it's
I could
crazy. So,
imagine.
but I mean, we're open all year round. We try to do as much as we can because the house needs a lot of work. It's
Right.
6,000 square feet of
That's
1700s to early 2000s renovations, wiring. Like it's a big task. So
right. Now, what have you found is the most intriguing
me,
about
the most
it?
intriguing thing about White Hill overall is, for me, it's the human story. It's the history, trying to put myself in people's perspective back then. Um,
Hmm.
and it's cool because I've done a lot of historical research, and it's amazing the stuff you can find and kind of how important this little house was in this area, especially during the Revolutionary time period.
Hmm.
Um, but also, what the most intriguing is the hauntings there. I've been there 5 years. Our president Dawn has been there 11. We still don't really know who's haunting, why they're haunting. Like it seems like it's always whenever you just got it figured out. Where I'm like, wait a second, curveball comes, and it's like they always try to keep you on your toes. And to me, to me it feels like it's just one of those special places where we have a core group of spirits, I think, that hang around.
Hmm.
But then I think other spirits can just come through, and it's one of those places. I don't know if it's easier for them to come through, or it's because people are there all the time investigating. It's like kind of like attracts them. But
Hmm.
sometimes we get activity that I'm like, this has nothing to do with Whitehill, and it's just, to me, it's just so cool because people keep coming back, keep investigating, and they always have a different experience, and it's never quite the same, but it always is. We're always learning, and when I think I got it figured out, it's like, nope. Let me just tell you this now. I'm like, man, where did that come from? So,
Well, it sounds especially with um, the the mistress of the house when she was there was a lot of people going through there.
hmm
So I think it's kind of the same now where, oh, we need a place to stay. Okay, we're going on vacation. Let's go to
hmm
White
yeah,
but it does sound that like it's very active and it's a very big piece of history,
it is,
definitely.
and
And important for New Jersey also.
exactly. And there's a lot of times where sometimes I'll do, like, when a team comes in, I'll ask them if they want a history tour.
Hmm.
So sometimes they want a history tour just to lay a land on some of the activity. And sometimes on the tour, when I'm start talking about the history and some of the notable people in the house, we get activity. And sometimes I'm like, I think they really like hearing about themselves sometimes. So it's really interesting, and it's really interesting to see the reports of different activity
Right.
and even some of the same reports. Um, it kind of makes me happy sometimes when we kind of hear the same reports because I'm like, okay, cool, they're still around. They seem generally happy for the most part. So it's really cool. And I kind of think, and I think most of the board, and especially me and Dawn, because we're there a lot with the paranormal program, we
Hmm.
kind of think that some of the intelligent spirits there, they kind of understand and know why we're there and what we're trying to do. And I
Hmm.
think there's kind of like a happy medium. Not that they're like, okay, we're circus, performers, we know
Hmm.
someone's here, but I think they understand without us being there and without them kind of interacting with people
Right.
that it's a weird thing. And like I look back after 5 years and I'm like, wow, look where I'm at. Like I would have never even imagined I would be here. But it's been a crazy journey. And just I love hearing people's reactions to the house for the first time. I mean, a lot of people come just for the paranormal, and then when I
Mhm,
give them a brief history tour, they're like blown away. They're like, "Oh my god, I had no idea that there was this much history this close to me." And that
mhm.
for me is a win-win because we're raising money, people are having a good time investigating the paranormal, and we're telling the story and the history of these people in this amazing house. So it's like a total win-win for me.
That definitely is. Plus, learning that your family had some history there,
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty crazy. So
and now you, without even knowing, back
fell
in
right
it,
in there. Yep.
right?
Fell right in there. So
So, what has been? I know this is gonna. I hate asking this question because everybody stops. Like, what has been the scariest?
so it's weird because looking back,
Hmm.
when you're in a haunted location for like 80% of your time, sometimes you get like not immune to it, but you just get used to it. But
Right.
the one place in the mansion that always keeps me on my toes
Hmm.
is the third floor attic. For some reason, it's got a very weird vibe. Sometimes you go up there, completely normal. And then sometimes you step foot up there and you can just feel it. I'm just like, and I don't claim to be like sensitive or psychic,
Right.
but it's heavy sometimes. You're just like, nah, I'm okay today. I will stay out of the attic. And like, it's not like I don't want anyone out there to be like, oh my God, there's something evil in the
No.
it's just a, it's just a vibe. And probably one of the creepiest things was early on. I think this was before I even saw the little boy in the hallway, so I was
Hmm.
still kind of like skeptical. Um, we had a public investigation. I was just tagging along, and the whole
Hmm.
group went up into the attic. And there's two parts of the attic: a bigger part and a smaller part. Smaller part is not Kyle's favorite part. So the bigger part is where everyone was, and the investigator was like going over some equipment. They were getting started, and I was
Right.
looking down the hallway towards the smaller part, and everyone in the house is behind me, and I look over there and I see a silhouette of a person like kneel down looking for something on the floor. And the room is dark. It's like 2 o'clock in the morning, so the room is completely dark, but I can see this silhouette and this figure
Hmm.
perfectly clear in the darkness of the room. It was darker than the dark room. It was like, so that already was messing with my mind. And I'm like, what am I looking at? I'm like, that's a person looking for something on the floor. And all this is going on in my mind. And I'm like, but everyone's behind me. I'm like, who is that? And then popped its head up, saw a full silhouette of a person, head,
Right.
shoulders, and it crawled across the floor and hid behind the door jamb and kind of peeked out like this twice. And I saw
Right.
head, shoulders, fingers, the whole thing. And I'm just sitting there and I don't have any reaction. I'm just watching this. And I was just like, it took me a week because I was pretty like shaken by that because I was like, whatever I saw
Right.
me too. And
Right.
we both were like, I don't know what to do. What should we do? And I said I was so scared. I was like scared stupid. I just stood there. Um, and I still to this day don't know who I saw. Um,
Hmm.
but I think what creeped me out at that time because it was early on in my paranormal journey or whatnot.
Right.
So I'm like, whatever it sees me, like it's aware of me. Like it's a total different experience when you see like a shadow person
Right.
or something. But when it looks at you and knows you're there, it's a whole another level of engagement that I was like not cool with at the time. But it's cool to see over the years that kind of has increased, and I almost think it's curious now, or
Hmm.
whoever it is, or if there's more than one up there. The shadow people up there are incredible. People have seen them, and they come down and they're just like, and I'm like, you saw it. I'm right there with you. It's like we should go to therapy now together. Um, but people are like, I don't understand. I could see it clear. Like the room is black, but I can see it, and I'm like, I don't. That's just the way it works. I don't know how it works.
I think it was probably a servant or something that
Hmm.
would stay up there, and stuff on the floor. It was probably the little bit of money that they were able to save
Yeah.
and put it their way. And when they saw you, they were like, Oh my God, wait.
Yeah,
I
who's
know
this
my
guy?
hiding spot.
Yeah, who's this guy? Because when I first saw whoever it was like completely unaware of and they weren't quiet behind me. They were just
Right.
beginning the investigation. So they were all talking, having a good time. And I'm like, it was completely unaware that anyone else was there until it looked my way. And then it was like, oh God. So that was probably the scariest.
Yeah.
Probably
And
I've been
truthfully,
there.
I am sensitive and I'm a medium. I don't feel
Hmm.
that there's anything negative. I
Hmm.
just feel it was somebody that was there, like, a servant or something, and just going about his business. And the reason he probably saw you was because you have the same bloodline that your whole family. So they may have one of your family members may have interacted with them back then, whenever that was.
Yeah, it's very possible. Um, I've had a couple spirits say that I remind them of someone. So I don't know, maybe I look like one of my ancestors that they interact with.
Uh-huh.
Who knows? I mean,
Could
it
be.
could be very possible.
Could
Um,
be.
but it's so hard because people always come out too, and during their investigations, I'm like, listen, tell us anything you get because we want to know too. Like,
Right.
we're not the experts. Like, I have no idea what's going on there half the time. So they'll come out and they'll give us all kinds of names, and I'm like, there's 300 years of history, and there's been people here for hundreds of years, just the restaurant years. I
Right.
mean, 50 years of a restaurant, there's probably been thousands of people through that door. I'm like, I can't pinpoint that down, and I always ask the spirits. I'm like, listen, just give me one of your last names so I can finish the research so I can. And of course I never
Yeah.
get that.
Yeah.
That would be too easy. But
Way too easy. Way too
it's
easy.
just the attic is probably one of the creepier locations for me. Other people too. It's just it seems like there's a lot going on up there. It seems like there's the shadow people, but then there also seems to be other kind of spirits too. Um,
Yes.
but it's
Attics are usually very creepy.
yeah,
And
and
basements.
the attic and
Mm.
the basement at Whitehill are usually the hot spots.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's pretty cool though. It's cool to see the mix of intelligent spirits, I guess the pass through spirits,
Mm-hmm.
and even some of the residual stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's kind of cool to interact. Like we got it all. People were like, "Oh, where's your hotspots?" And I'm like, "Anywhere it wants to be." I don't know. They kind of just do whatever they want. I don't. I'm not their. I'm not their keeper. I don't really
Right.
know. They are completely. They're coherent. They do what they want.
Mm-hmm.
So.
So, um, what besides the child? Because I know there had to be something else. What else finally pushed you to the other side?
Well, I mean,
The
seeing
child
the
was
little
pretty big, yeah.
the child was the culmination of, I guess, like a whole bunch of little activity. It was weird because when I first started there, and like again, I claim to not be sensitive or psychic media. I don't know. I always thought I always kept looking behind me down low because I always thought there was this little kid following me around. Like, and I had no preconceived notion of like a kid's spirit or any of that when I
Right.
started. I just would always be like down like that, especially when I'm locking the door. Like I thought I would see like movement down low.
Mhm.
So I always played it off. But then leading up to seeing the little kid, there was times where we would have a group of people in and we're just telling them the history and like give them the rules before they do their investigation. And behind me, I hear clear as day, like a little kid's disembodied voice. I to the
Good.
point where I turn around because I'm like, okay, I heard that. And other people are looking and they're like, okay, I heard. I'm like, okay, I'm not crazy.
Not
So I
that
think
crazy.
it was a lot of little interactions.
Right.
Um, Down in the basement, there seems to be a very active male spirit,
Mhm.
um, and he's super aware and super intelligent. It's pretty incredible. He's channeled through two mediums twice. And prior to this, I had no experience with mediums or channeling, so I was skeptical. And then after this experience, I was like, okay, that was real because when he came through, it was 100% aware of like what we were talking about previous. It was the most intelligent responses. He knew the one of the coolest things that he said when he came through is he said we had K2s out on the table and he's
Mhm.
like, these things are stupid, right? And I'm like, how do you he's like, yeah, the things that light up. So he completely like knew why people come there and try to get responses through
Right.
them. So it's just really cool. I think all those little things kind of added up, and when I saw a little boy, I was like, okay, that's it. I have to fully investigate this now for myself and figure out why was it me that was brought to White Hill? Did I just stumble upon this? Is this some kind of bigger plan? I don't know, but it's been a fun ride and I enjoy investigating. And White Hill, like I said, it never gets old. Probably don't investigate it as much as I should. Um, but when you're there a lot trying to do events and stuff, you don't have a
It
really lot of time, you
no,
know?
no. And now, has that brought you in any interest to investigate other places or?
Yeah. Yeah, it's like I have my White Hill experiences, but I'm like,
Mhm.
there has to be, more to this. So I've gone all over the country,
Right.
traveling around different locations, and I've gotten some pretty cool stuff. So I mean, it keeps expanding and it keeps me questioning and I want to know more answers. And you know how that goes. When you think you get an
You,
answer, you
you,
just
you
get
get
more
this little
questions.
bit, and
You
then
get
they go,
more
oh, and there's more.
Yep, get more and more questions. It's just incredible.
But that
So,
is good when you question, because then that means that you're not investigating just to investigate. You
mhm,
investigate to get to the bottom of it, to figure out
exactly.
who they are, what their true history is.
Mhm.
Let's face it, there's a lot of history, and a lot of it has been just brushed under the rug or rewritten.
Exactly, and that was a lot of when I first started there, and I just started learning the history. I was like, people need to know about these people. They did amazing things, and they're kind of like lost to history, and that's
Hmm.
what spawned a lot of my research. So I don't know if that helped. If they know I do, I don't know how it works, but
Well,
maybe
they know, they see, they feel that they are very intelligent on that side because they
yes.
went through life already.
Hmm.
Now they get a full picture. We only get, when you're alive, you only get this little bit. They get
Hmm.
the whole world, so to speak. And so they know that you're trying to help, and they know that you're trying to better the place. So, again, tell our audience what the website is.
So anyone who wants to check out White Hill, check out Friends of White Hill Mansion or whitehillmansion.org. We're on Facebook, Friends of White Hill Mansion. We're on Instagram. Real easy to find. It's all on our website and all on our Facebook. You guys can book everything, investigations, um, tours, see all of our events right on the website. So it's super, super easy. Um, and if anyone messages on Facebook or email, we'll answer right away. It's either me or Dawn, so we'll get right back to you.
And I want to remind everyone that this is their volunteer time. Okay, so it isn't like they're getting salary. It isn't for the glory. It's to save this place, this piece of history.
Yes, I don't sit in the mansion right by a phone waiting for you to call. I do I do have a day job, so we will get back to you as soon as possible. So, not like Quasimodo in the bell tower. So, but yeah, it's an amazing place. Everyone should come check it out if you haven't already. And if you have, please come back because there's so much more to offer every time you come back.
Well, it's one of those places that, like you said, every single time that you go back, you get this different experience because
Hmm.
there's so many spirits there.
Yes.
It
Oh my
isn't
God.
like one or two. It's
It's multiples.
multiple. And from what I could tell from the one time that I did go, way before you
Oh, you were
started,
there.
a
When did
long
you
time
go?
ago, long time ago,
Wow.
they I remember seeing, like, coming in and coming out. It was like a revolving door. I'm like, oh Lord, I can't even talk to one of them because there was just,
That's what it feels like sometimes. Like
yeah,
it's just like
it's
they're
just
just like, I'm
they're
gonna
just
pop
passing
in.
through,
I'm gonna
passing
pop
through.
in. Yep.
Yep.
Well,
So
that's cool. You should have told me earlier we've been there. I would have
yeah,
went.
I wanted to hear from you.
Yeah. No, that's cool. You kind of confirmed what we've kind of gotten the vibe lately. That's what's
Yeah,
happening. So
that
that's cool.
it's I and it's funny, but I think the more that the world goes into turmoil, the more revolving door activity.
Mm.
because they're feeling probably the same vibe as they did with the Revolutionary War and
That makes
a-
sense.
all that stuff. So um, you're probably going to get a lot more activity.
Oh boy.
Yeah, lucky for you.
Yeah, lucky for me when I lock up by myself. I always talk to him as I go through the house. I'm like, listen, I don't care if you're around me, just don't do that abrupt scare. I hate the abrupt scare. Don't jump out from a corner. Like,
Don't peek out like
yeah,
that.
like you can follow me around, or if you want to talk to me, that's fine. Just don't sneak up on me. Not now. Oh,
Oh, they're fun.
they are.
There.
Yeah, it's a really, and I also tell people like we're pretty affordable, and we get a lot of first time ghost hunters, which I
Right.
love. And I said this is one of the better spots to start your first ghost hunt or your
Mhm.
first journey into paranormal. I'm like, there's nothing here that's gonna ruin your life. Nothing's gonna follow you home. We're not gonna pull you off the ceiling and hit you with holy water. It'll be fine. Like it can get a little intense, it can get a little weird, but it's a great place. And I think it's weird. Sometimes I think they know who can handle a little bit more and who can't. So it's kind of cool to see that sometimes where I'm like, okay, they're gonna go easy on these people, and then I see another people that have come here a couple times, and I'm like, okay, they might go a little bit stronger this time. So it's kind of cool.
Right. Well, I can tell you there's nothing, like people say evil or anything like that. And there's just human beings that lived here and
Hmm.
at one point or another. And some are guardians guarding the land to make sure nobody destroys it. And the rest are just coming back because it's a good place to be.
Yep, like I
So,
always said, they're like you said, they're people just like us. Some want to talk to you, some don't. Some are
right.
grumpy,
Hmm.
some aren't. So
Right. So,
it's all in how you approach them.
exactly. Exactly. So we have a few minutes. Is there anything that you want to say that you haven't?
Thank you again for
Thank you.
featuring me. That's awesome. And just everyone check out and follow Whitehill on Friends of Whitehill Mansion on Facebook. Check us
Mhm.
out on the website. Come visit us. And if you guys can, right on our website, you guys can donate. Every little bit helps. So anything you can muster, that would be greatly appreciated by the friends. So
Exactly. And Christmas is coming and
yes,
holidays are coming. So you could always ask your friends and your family to donate in your name.
exactly.
See?
A hundred
So,
percent right. Yes.
all right. Well, thank you again.
Thank you.
It was great talking to you. You need to come back
Absolutely.
again and let us know if you've discovered any new mystery ghosts there.
Oh, I will do. Now I have a mission. All right.
There you go.
All right.
All right. Thank you. Just hold on for a second. Thank you, everyone. It's been great. Remember, go to the website, donate whatever you can. It helps. And they're trying to keep history alive, true history, not sometimes what we get in the books, but the real physical. So let's do it, guys. All right. Love yous all. Blessings. Bye.